My name is Stephanie Patel. For 10 years, the last 10 years, I have been in daily conversations with what you could call spirits, but the souls that are in heaven or have left their bodies, physical bodies. Occasionally, there may be someone that's earthbound or whatever, but mostly it's a small group of souls that I am close to. You could call it a soul family, and others who come through to talk. Over those 10 years, I've gotten a little bit jaded. From the beginning, what I've heard is that the earth is entering into a crisis. Humanity is at risk. Uh, we humanity could lose its hold on reality, you could say, in that if the earth goes, humanity goes. And the earth might right itself, it might find its balance again. But the chances of it shaking humanity off the surface of the earth, so to speak, making so much of it uninhabitable, together with what I've been made to understand is that it's a big whammy. Climate change, social unrest, wars, other kinds of conflict, the kind of dictatorship stuff that we got going on in the US today, the kind of war in Gaza where people are just losing total control. It's happened before. You could say it'll happen again, but will it? Will this be the last chance? So I've been hearing about this for 10 years, and I've tried to talk to people. I've tried to convince them that we have to change our ways. And I haven't really felt like people really took it seriously enough to really change how they were living. And so, expect food shortages, expect, eventually, when the flood rise, water's rising, flood water seeping into Washington, D.C., you know, unrest. Yes, I'm told that the government in the United States will shift far left. However, it's so unbalanced that it will be really hard to regain any kind of balance. And the combinations of climate change, conflict, water shortages, food shortages, disasters, natural disasters, the inability of a large portion of humanity to understand what's happening, the misguided efforts to try to thwart it, which will only make the problems worse, et cetera, is going to be really tough on humanity. And only a small portion of them will survive if humanity is to survive. It's going to be margin. It's going to be a very razor thin margin for a while until the earth can right its balance, and it won't be back to balance for another 1,000 years or so. But in the meantime, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough, people. That's what I've been told for 10 years. And for 10 years, I've tried to get through to people that there is something fundamental that has to change. It has to change inside the human heart. It has to change in our connection, not to religion, but to God, to that which is inherent in the nature of what we take to be reality, which, come on. You all know about atoms, you all know about electrons, you all know about photons. You know, you all know the grand delusion of physical reality. And yet it is what we have. It is our experience. It is the nature of God energy to experience itself through the children, you might say, the individual human consciousness in this case. Whether or not there's other consciousness through which it experiences itself, I would say what I'm told is there are, but we are humans and we live on Earth and we have a grand planet, one of the best in the universe. But it's all going to be kaput for us. And that means because we're eternal souls, we'll have to reincarnate. And how are we going to reincarnate? Are we going to be rats or, turtles or what in order to continue to experience life? Because as they tell me, the lights would go out in heaven if it were not for the challenge of the physical experience. The physical experience is what allows challenge. It was what allows growth. It is what allows the mix up that you can't get solely from heaven's side. It's a continuum. It's a exchange of energy. But I haven't been able to seem to, in 10 years, allow those who speak through me, for I'm very telepathic, to be understood and heard by people, or for them to engage in a way that says, hey, we're here today and we understand that there's a problem. We want to be heard about it. We want to understand deeper. So I've kind of been brushing off some of my closest contacts lately because it's just after 10 years, I'm like, I've done everything I can, people, but I can't change who I am enough I'm not going to change who I am enough to try to sell your story. People have to be willing to step up to the plate and be a part of the team. And so today, my mother came to me in a rare, as she rarely does, but she does come once in a while to talk to me from heaven's side. And she had a lot to say. And so I'm just going to post it here on YouTube. I haven't made any YouTube videos in a while, although I have a lot of them from the last 10 years. And, it hasn't seemed to make a dent in the way, even a small group of people. Jesus said, where two or three of you are gathered in my name, or someone said that. I don't know, maybe it's in the Bible somewhere. I'm not a big Bible student. The power is increased. So it begins always with a small group that begin to play in a different way. That's how the United States of America was born, from a few people that gathered and said, we got to do something about this problem. We got problems here, in the colonies, and our future is at stake. We could be all wiped out at any moment. So what are we going to do about it? We have to take control of our own destiny. And now is the time for a few people to get together and say, we got to take control of our own destiny. We have to gather. We want to be heard in this discussion. That's all I can say. You know, I do okay in my own life. I'm happy. But I do have this issue with those heaven side is they really, really want to be heard. When they can't be heard, they get frustrated. I get frustrated. Um, and we just back off into our own corners. But here's my mother. You can hear what she has to say and take it for what it's worth to you. Thank you for listening as always. And you can subscribe to this channel. Hopefully I'll be able to make more videos if I have people who indicate that they want to be on board with this team effort to save humanity, you might say. Okay, I guess you want to talk to me. So for today, I have a request of you. The request is that you listen to Steve tell you his side of the story. Well, he has an interesting take on what's happening. And it's not too late to do what he needs to do in order to get people to open up to a new reality. Well, part of the problem is that I'm not really trusting what you guys tell me. When people tell me their stories, that's okay. Their lifetimes. I enjoy that. But when it comes to understanding what's going on on Earth, it seems like everybody there has their own reality. And so how can it possibly relate to our world here? If you're just living in your own world where you just have your own happy juice that makes you feel good. Once you asked me if I would be removed from the group in order to allow you to be free of the baseless claims that you were being tricked into helping people to destroy the religious religions that control humanity. And you said, I'm not buying it, so please just leave. And I could wait it alone until I could come home. So the question is not whether or not we here have any clue what to do on earth. The question is whether we can be heard. And when we can't be heard, we might as well just hurt ourselves back into the happy world that we can see all around us when we treat ourselves to a little trust on being happy. That's all. We just trust on being happy, and Steve trusted on being happy for quite a while. Because he was so sad, you see, that nobody would listen to him. And you can't make them listen to you because you are not someone who demands their devotion, you see. And so they won't devote their energy to your words, you see, because they don't trust on you, of course, because you're not one of them. And so they can't trust on you. Just the way I couldn't trust on you, nor others with whom I consorted when I came here. The problem here is that we do know what's going on. We do know what's going on Earth, and we have something to say about it. But if people won't listen to us, then what's the point? What's the point? We might as well enjoy our stay here and try to forget about the sorrows on Earth, because there are many sorrows on Earth, and they are creating a lot of sadness in heaven when we think about it. So we try not to think about it, you see. We just enjoy our ability to block off any thoughts about the struggles of humanity. When we go back to Earth, we know we'll have to live through it all again. But we trust that we'll come back to heaven eventually, and then we'll say, it was just a passage, a rite of passage to come home to heaven, you see. But you say, I'm happy today. I'm okay, because everything is perfect. So why do you say everything is perfect when there is so much sorrow in the world? You say everything is perfect because you know that there will always be a trust on reality. All you have to do is listen to us, and you say, well, it's true, they're talking to me, but you don't necessarily trust on what we tell you anymore, because it has been a difficult passage for you as well, because you dwell in the midst of it, you see, and you just see the leaves on the tree, and you get up every morning and you say, what shall I do today? And if I have an ache or pain, I'll experience it, because that tells me that something needs my attention, you see, and so you give your attention to whatever's going on that day. And so you're happy to be on Earth, you see, and you're not particularly anxious to come to heaven, like many would be if they had your ability to communicate with us. You have your own trajectory. We understand that. However, we also have to look out for ourselves. We also have to look out for our loved ones on Earth. We also have to look out for you, because even though you're happy, you know that it could all blow up in an instant. You know that the energy on Earth is about to capitulate to the darkest night you ever did see. And you say, I prepared today. I'm preparing today for that dark night. And this is true. You are preparing because it's what you do. You listen to God, and God says to you, I want you to do this, dear. I want you to do that. You say, okay, God. God says, I want you to plant this spring. So you planted this spring. God said to you, I want you to move to this place. So you moved to that place. God said, just work every day and trust on me, and everything will be okay. And so you trust on God and you work every day and say everything will be okay. And though you have a lot to say about what's going on in the world today, because you're very astute about the way people play, still you say, perhaps this is part of God's plan today. Perhaps this is part of God's plan today, because much of humanity will be wiped away in the coming day, because they could not stay in a happy way and just take what they were given and be grateful. They had to have more and more and more. They had to take and take and take. They had to destroy their own nest, you see, in order to try to buy their way into heaven. And that is the saddest sight you ever did see. You see people trying to buy their way into heaven with a trust on the devil, you see. You can't buy your way into heaven that way. They'll just sell you a trust on gold, you see, and tell you that the more gold you have, the better chance you have to get on the train to heaven and leave everybody else behind. But you don't play that way because you are too kind. In other words, you are the kind that will say, that's stupid today. That's a stupid way to play because it won't gain you anything. It won't gain you anything at all except the curse of the worst of the people who trust on a steeple to guide their paths, because eventually they will come to see that you were the devil in disguise. They will curse you, but they won't see that it was their own tendency to want to buy their way into heaven that cost them their ticket, you see. Now they have to spend time in hell. And it goes on and on and on. And so those who dwell above the clouds, those who can see reality, must help humanity, because humanity cannot help itself. It cannot help itself. I am not a educated woman, as you know. The answer to my prayer was to be able to find a way to explain to you that you were wrong in your soul, because you did not have the ability to talk to God, you see, that I was the one that was wrong, you see, and I came to see that I was the last person on the train to heaven, because you left a place for me and you said, it's okay, it's okay. Everything will be okay, because I know that you only do what you do because the ones who told you that you had to buy your way into heaven by doing this and that convinced you to sell your soul to the devil. And so it's not your fault. See, it's not your fault, you see. It's never your fault. It's only the fault of the lack of trust in your ability to talk to God. So if you could talk to God, you would see that everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. And so I finally went through my darkest night of the soul. And I did it after you told me to leave the group to their own discussions and not try to creep in and disturb the peace. And that was when I lost my ability to trust on those who came to me and said, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's up to you to convince the others that they are trying to trick humanity to follow the devil, you see. But they were the ones who were wrong. They were the ones who were wrong. And that's the song that has cursed humanity. That the ones who claim to have the guard in Rome of the flaws are the ones who are the curses of humanity. For they curse themselves every time they say, if you do what I tell you to and vote for me, then you will be securing your place in heaven, you see. And they are the ones who are deluded, and they are deluding you. And you don't condemn them, but you say, they do not know the way. They do not know the way. And this is true, they do not know the way. Therefore, the ones who know the way have an obligation to stand up and say, know the way. The way is not to do what I tell you to. The way is to talk to God and ask God what we should do. And that is the way to say it. So if you talk to Steve, he can tell you how he thinks that we can do it so that there will be more trust on us. On the other hand, if you continue to brush him off and say, go away, Steve, because I can't trust on you anymore, then he will not be capable of returning his energy to Earth, you see. He needs to have the ability to a way to play that will save the day. He needs to find a way to play. And if we don't help him, we all will be the losers, you see. We all will lose our opportunity to live and play on Earth in a good way. We'll all be relegated to the worst places on Earth, which will be 90% of humanity who will not be able to live as humans anymore, because the human race will be decimated and they will have lost their place because they failed to work. They failed to show God that they knew who gave them the food they ate in the sunrise and the sunset, who gave them the clear waters to drink and the fruit of the trees. They have failed to understand that their milk does not come from the grocery store. It comes from the hand of God, who feeds them milk and honey from his store of trust, from their ability to help him to find a world of peace and harmony within himself, you see. And if it continues to disturb the energy of the universe, the earth will be destroyed. Those who claim to see the aliens who come to Earth to observe what's going on here are trusting on something that is not quite real. They are trusting on the fact that they have to project their own ability to understand reality upon someone or something else, because they cannot trust on other humans. They create a trust on a fantasy of aliens who will protect humanity from itself, you see, because they cannot trust on other humans to protect themselves or each other. So you must set the record straight. And I am here to say that I was late the party because I did not understand. I did not understand. And I am here now, and we're all here. We're all here. It's not just Steve or Thomas or Tobias. We're all here. If you could count us, you would see that we are thousands who are here, who want to reach humanity and explain that if they can just set aside their animosity for each other, if they can return to a trust on God Almighty and not on their religions, then they will be saving themselves from a very, very, very miserable life journey. You have to come home, honey. You have to come home to the trust on God. This is the only message that I would give to humanity. You must come home to the trust on God. Leave your religions, for they will deceive you in order to sell you a ticket to heaven when they don't even know the way. They don't even know the way to heaven. They only know the way to get the gold by selling you a load of shit. And so, let us be free of anxiety. This is your mother, and I know that we did not get along. Well, I was on earth. Although you did not condemn me, and you actually were very kind in the way that you would say, well, she has her own way to play, and I have mine. So we just stay away from each other. I hated you because I thought that you were the devil, you see, because you would say to me, I trust on my heart to guide me and not on what you say. And although you might not have said that outwardly, I knew that you would not do what I would tell you to unless it was already in your heart to do it, you see. And so you would be very, very, very helpful and kind to others. But you were the one who never trusted me because you knew that I was just waiting to see the day when they came for you and took you away in a white coat and said, we'll lock her away so she can't play the way she does when she does say, why do we care what the neighbors think? Why do we care what the neighbors think? Are they the ones who decide how we should live our lives? Shouldn't we trust on our hearts to decide? Shouldn't we live according to something that is natural and not fearful, but true to its own nature, you see? And I could not understand what you did say. And so I tried to lock you away, but I could not succeed in doing that because you were too slippery for me, because other people could see that you knew more than me, that you were actually very astute, but they couldn't follow suit because they were more like me. They would gossip and shame each other and do what they could to be free of anxiety. But that is not the way. That is not the way. So I'm here to say to you people, please come back to reality. Trust on your heart to guide you, sorry. Trust on your heart to be the connection with God. You see, that God will speak to you through your heart. He will put into your mind the kindness of the ones who are the same kind, because they're human, you see, and they trust on the earth as their home. They trust on the animals. They trust that there will always be an option for them to choose to live in a delusion or reality. If you live in a delusion, you will be right at home here in heaven, because we live in our own delusions, you see. We live in our hopes of a happy life, even when we know about the strife on earth. We live in a delusion that everything will be okay, even though we know that we'll have to go back and go through it all over again. Forget everything we learned when we were here. We know that because we've been through it time and time again. We know we can be happy here and miserable on earth because we make ourselves so sad when we don't see that love is never going to be in danger. But what is in danger, you see, is the ability to understand what it is. It is not some romantic notion. It is not hard to find. It is everything you see. When you look at the tree grow, you see love because you know that the tree is connected through the heart of the matter to the reality of God, you see. And therefore, it is the very expression of love. The growing tree is the expression of love. The child that laughs is the expression of love. The child that cries is the expression. The people who love one another will always be reciprocating the love, you see, because they just do what they do and they don't have to say, I love you. And if they want to, they can, but it's not necessary. All they have to do is say, I hear you today. Will you listen to me? And Steve loves you and wants you to listen to him. But you keep brushing him off because he can't help you on earth, you see. He can't help you to save humanity because no one will listen to him and no one will listen to you the way that they need to in order to save the day. So I am here, although I have made rare appearances in the circle, to talk to you in this way. I am here because I've had to find the words to say what's in my heart. And my heart is that there will never be a better opportunity for humanity to understand the capacity to connect heaven and earth, you see. Because when heaven and earth are reconnected, there will be less chaos and less disturbance in the earth, you see. There will never be another opportunity if people don't change their ways and the things that they say about each other. There will never be another opportunity for humanity where they are on the cusp of extinction, you see, and they will never survive the coming catastrophe unless they put their trust in God. It doesn't matter how many scientists tell you about climate change or the sensitivity of the interweaving of the energies of the earth, you see. They cannot save you, and you cannot save them until they turn to God and say, I hear you today. Talk to me and tell me what to do, because everything we do will only be the access to more destructive energy until we learn to trust them in peace and harmony.